Now we'll take a look at time remapping. Time remapping is the change in time of keyframes and of clips. We'll be going into our animation menu under the keyframe assistant, and we can also reach this menu by right-clicking the keyframe, and down at the bottom we have our keyframe assistant. Okay. By selecting a few of these keyframes, I can change the order that the keyframes play in. Right now this box goes from the top left to the top right and then down to the bottom right. So if I wanted to reverse the orders, I can go into my keyframe assistant and go to time reverse keyframes, and the position of the keyframes has changed. So this keyframe has moved to this position and this keyframe has moved to this position. This keyframe, since there's an odd number of keyframes, didn't move. But if there was another keyframe in this area, for instance, then these two keyframes would also change position. Also under the keyframe assistant, we have something called Easy Ease. And what this does is it fixes the interpolation of the keyframes to provide a more smooth transition within the animation. I'm using Control Z to remove this so we can look at one more of the Easy Ease. Here I've used the ease in, and so now the image begins to speed up as it reaches the next keyframe. The same would work for the ease out, and the image would slow down until it reached its next position rather than reach the position and come to abrupt stops. We can also change the time with a video clip. Here we can see the video in the background. And we can see how the bubbles come out towards us. Now, under the layer menu, there's something called time stretch. And what this does is it gives us the percentage of our video clip layer. Here it's at 100%, and 100% for this video clip is 20 seconds. So if I were to put in, say, 75%, then the new duration for the video clip would be 15 seconds, because 15 seconds would be 75% of the 20. And here we can see that the bubbles will play a little bit faster. And I'm going to Control Z to undo this. We can also use the time stretch to lengthen it by adding a higher percentage. And we're going to see that the layer bar now reaches across the entire composition here. I'm going to Control Z that again. We can also use the time stretch to add in a negative number. And what this will do is my bar has disappeared because it's gone in reverse time. And now you see that there's these little red lines along the layer bar. Now as I drag the time marker across, you can see that the bubbles are moving away from us now instead of towards us. So inputting a negative time is the same as putting in a regular percentage and except that the layer will play in reverse. We can do the same for the audio in order to make the audio stretch across however we would want it to. And we can also use it to play audio in reverse. And this too will have little red bars to show that the time has changed. Now we're going to talk about parenting. Parenting is using one layer to affect the actions of another layer. Here you can see I've animated the two boxes. The red box goes across and up, and the blue box comes down. I want to get the blue box to continue to come down, but I also want it to follow the red box. In order to do this, I'm going to parent the blue box to the red box. So the red box would become the parent and the blue box will become the child. In order to do this, I need to open the parent info palette or menu. I click on the bar above the layer info, and it gives me this little menu where I can hide the infos, or I can bring them out by coming to this columns area. I've selected the parent info. Now we can parent our blue box to our red box. There's two ways we can do this. Here you'll see a little list that says none, which means that this box has no parents. And so we can go into that list and select a parent from that box. Now we can see that the blue box follows the red box, but also continues its own animation. If I turn this off, the blue box continues its animation and is not affected by the red box. The other way I can do this is this little swirly key. I can click and drag and select the layer that I want to be the parent. By going up to layer and adding a null object, I can also parent the red box with this null object. Then I can use this to easily manipulate both boxes, or I can use the red box to manipulate it separately from the null object. And so if I have multiple boxes that I want to animate, I can use the null object to parent all of the boxes and move each one, or I can just move them separately by themselves without having to worry about extra animation. Now we're going to take a quick look at expressions. Expressions are the same or similar to parenting, except that you can use expressions to affect any property of a layer by using any property of another layer. So I can affect the rotation of this blue square with the scaling of this red square. As you can see, I've animated the red square to get larger as it moves along its path. In order to bring up an expression, we hold the Alt button while we click on the animation toggle that we want. Since we're going to do the rotation, I'll Alt click on the rotation toggle, and we'll see we get this little equal sign. This means that there's an expression within the layer. Here we can enter bits of code, or we can select them from a menu to have our own bits of code. Or similar to the parenting, we can grab this little swirly key and drag it over. And I want to use the scaling of the red box. And so now we see that the blue box is rotating as the red box scales. We can use expressions on all sorts of ways in order to animate things to be more precise. And this could be helpful if you wanted say an animation of a ball rolling across. You could link the rotation to the position of the ball. Now we're going to look at how we can make an animation using audio. You can see my audio layer here that I've drug in from the project window. With my audio layer selected, I go up to the animation menu and the keyframe assistant, and I go to convert audio to keyframes. This will create a new null object, and it'll be called audio amplitude. And we can see under the effects that it has the keyframes for each channel. If we click this open, we can see the sliders for the channel, and here's the actual keyframes. So in order to use these keyframes, we need to add an expression to one of the properties we want to animate. So let's say that I want to animate the scale of the box, and so I click the Alt button. I Alt click the animation toggle, and I'll get the little expression button. And I use the little swirly key to select one of these sliders. I want to use both channels of the audio, so I'll select this slider. And we can see that the code has been put in. And there you can see that the blue square is now affected by the audio layer. The blue square has disappeared because the audio layer has finished. So we'll only see the blue square as if it was part of the audio layer.